Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mondays at Noon. I'm Dr. Molly Pepper, the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs here in the School of Business. And Mondays at Noon is our weekly forum for gathering as a community. And this week, we're going to be talking about operations. It is Careers in Operations Day. So I just want to mention we're recording this session and it will be available on the School of Business YouTube channel. But with that, I am going to hand it over to our operations faculty who are running the show today, and we'll introduce the panel. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Molly. Welcome, Lois. Welcome, Yusra. As Molly mentioned, Dr. Pepper mentioned that the event is being recorded. And I'll make a couple quick announcements and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Hedin, who will moderate the event. So we have welcome to the panel event in the featuring the careers in operations for all students. Anything shared by the panelists during the session is based on their personal experiences, not on behalf or in representation of their current or previous employers. With that, I'll introduce Lois Quinn and Yusra Hamidani. Lois is currently a continuous improvement manager at Spokane Teachers Credit Union. She graduated from Eastern Washington University and earned her master's from Gonzaga. Her Six Sigma Black Belt certification was through Villanova University, and for over 20 years now.
I can't hear you. I'm not sure what to do.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'll continue and then hey Lois, can you hear me? Lois? Probably she can't hear me. Yusra, you can hear me? Okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
Lois is back. I can see her now. Can you hear us?
Finally.
All right, good deal.
I signed in 3 times trying to get to you.
It's Monday.
I was introducing you and Yusra. So let me proceed with introducing you. Her Six Sigma Black Belt certification, Lois's was through Villanova University, and for over 20 years now, she has worked as a lean consultant and has trained employees at various companies and has taught lean classes in several colleges and universities. Welcome, Lois. And going forward to Yusra. Yusra works at Boeing since over 5 years as a product manager and analyst focusing on emerging technologies in the greater Seattle area. She went to Gonzaga for her undergrad concentration in MIS operations and marketing. And she then went on to earn her Master's of Science in Purdue. Welcome, Yusra. Dr. Hedin will be moderating the event with questions for the panels. After all the questions are done, Dr. Hedin will welcome questions from the audience. The audience may ask their questions by either unmuting themselves or speaking, or by typing their questions into their chat. Dr. Hedin will conclude the event at 1:15 p.m. or if there are no more audience questions, whichever comes first. With that, I will hand it over to Dr. Hedin.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. Welcome to our panelists and welcome to all the students and other friends who are attending this session today. So we're going to start off with some prepared questions we have for the panelists. And I'm just going to ask you to each just pipe in when you want to and answer the question, and we'll move on to the next one. So the first question is a 2-part question. What motivated you to choose a career in operations, and how did you end up in your current position? Would you ever like to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Lois.
I'm not sure I actually intentionally created a career in operations. I have had multiple different kinds of backgrounds, and I just have found that every time I start someplace, I end up in operations just simply because I kind of see it. And in my current position, they had an opening for a continuous improvement manager. I was fortunate enough that STCU selected me, and it's been really fun to work there. We have a whole next group of people that are going to become the CI managers as more of us move along. And so my work is very much teaching everything everybody needs to know. And so it's very fun.
Very good, thank you. And Yusra?
Yeah, so kind of with, as Lois mentioned, it's been a bit unintentional for me too. So I've always, and my family makes fun of me for this, right? So like when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, okay, what's the most efficient route to get through? Or when I'm cooking, right? Like, how do I figure out the dependencies when I'm doing that? And so it's always been something that I've like, just my way of thinking. And so when I came about to choosing my kind of field of study, operations, as I learned more about it, seems like a good fit. But my passion is for the tech space, and I've always wanted to figure out how can we use technology to improve processes, figure out ways to automate things. And the operations background for me kind of went hand in hand with my MIS kind of passion there. So therefore, that motivated me to kind of pick operations when it came time for my field of study. Looking at my current position, so a bit of an update for everyone. So I know Dr. She mentioned that, I was at Boeing. I was in the IT space there. This is my second week on the job. I've taken on a new role within Amazon now, supporting as a product manager, but more in an operations space too. So I'm super excited to kind of build my way into that and be tied in more to the global specialty fulfillment. So that's like the last mile of how items are delivered to each and every one of us potentially. So using more of my operations background in that space. But to take a step back, as a product manager, whether that's at Boeing or anywhere else one may be aspiring for, I kind of see it into three areas, right? There's people, there's processes, and then there's the technology. And so the processes component, I think my operations has really helped me and has allowed me to kind of choose that product management realm where I'm able to kind of take in all the different areas of study or things that I'm interested in and mesh that into a career field for myself.
Very good, thank you both very much. So our next question is, what is your educational background? How has it helped you in your career? A little related to the first question.
Yeah, I can share that, and Lois, if you want to jump in. So for me, I think the framework that Gonzaga has provided me from the business school realm specifically really provided me exposure into the various fundamentals of, from an operation standpoint, concepts such as Lean, Six Sigma, looking at process improvements, figuring out that slack time, SLAs, and how do we tie all of that together, right? A lot of the work that I've done has been around figuring out potentially new ideas for different projects and whatnot. And so that holistic framework really allowed me to bring that unique lens versus being super specialized maybe in one area. So that really helped me kind of take that on outside of just operations, or within our business curriculum. You're studying finance, you're having an accounting background, international business, marketing, and that comes into play when you're in your, at least for me, when I'm in my career field, as I have to think about financial implications to my projects, right? Working in a global environment, right? The international business components come into play. And then lastly, marketing your work, right? So yes, you can have this great idea to do a process improvement, but how do you market that to your peers, your company leaders, and whoever else your audience may be? So that's been something that's really been helpful for me as I've kind of progressed on in my career.
Lois?
I love her answer to begin with. Sounds great. My career's been kind of a little different. When I was young, I couldn't afford to go to college, so I joined the Army to see the world and get my GI Bill. Then I did my bachelor's at Eastern. And at the time I was working for state government. And so I really focused on business because I could see how that would help me. And while I was in state government, I got the opportunity to go into process improvement. So that's how I got where I went. I did not do my master's until about 15 years after I finished my bachelor's, which I, knowing now, wish I had done it sooner. But I've really always kept going back to school and taking everything and anything I could. So, you know, it's almost an addiction anymore. If I can get a class, I take a class. My Six Sigma black belt I did because I had been doing process improvement for so long. In fact, scary as it sounds, I was originally trained by Dr. Deming. So having to go back and get a black belt to prove you knew what you knew after who taught you seemed a little silly, but well worth it. Probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And just every class, everything I can get has helped me. So in different businesses as a consultant, I've gone and gotten certified in forklift driving and crane operation, and I can look at specimens under a microscope. So, you know, never ever pass up a chance to learn something new. You never know where it's going to take you. And this is where it's taken me now.
Thank you, Lois. So our next question has to do with your academic careers. So you look at where you're at with in your career currently, and what would you, if you're looking back, if you could change something, what would you change about your academic training and degree program, if anything? What would you do differently?
I think actually knowing now what I know about Lean and Six Sigma and process improvement, and I kind of see life in that order. And I think I probably would have focused more on operations and probably would have focused more on those courses. My first focus was accounting, and that was helpful, but I really think I would have done some different things. Actually, my daughter has her BA from GU in operations and supply chain management, and she has a fabulous job. And in fact, in COVID, it's a multi-international company. So lots of different locations. And when they laid off all the buyers across the world because of COVID, they kept her. And she directly relates it to her education at Gonzaga and what she learned and how she could see things. And so they kept her on, and she was the buyer for all the plants across the world. And she's just now bringing on other buyers as business is picking up. So I think she did it right. And maybe I could have learned from her.
Sounds like it. Thank you. And how about you, Yusra?
I think I mean, Gonzaga prepared me really well. I just want to put that out there initially. I owe a lot of my success to Gonzaga and to the faculty and staff that supported me. But looking back and kind of seeing where I am now, if I could do it all over again, I wish I would have capitalized on my experience to study abroad. And I know that's kind of hard to say during today's times with COVID, but I think that experience of immersing yourself in a new culture or a new environment is super valuable for just any type of experience, right? When you're going to your employer, you're trying to figure out how to shape yourself in a culture, whether that's, you know, that continues on, right? So I also think from more of a like an academic curriculum perspective, I wish I had more knowledge of the various like certification around like PMP and others that are, so PMP is your project management certification. I wish I looked more into that as potential options and started kind of familiarizing myself if that's the route I wanted to go through to. And lastly, I think data-driven courses, right? The data analytics component is so critical in any field, but specifically within operations, right? When you're looking at process improvement, you have to have the data to back it up. You need to know what type of data you're looking for, and then how to tell a story through the data that you have to folks that may not be a part of your ops organization or elsewhere. And so I wish whether that's through Gonzaga's curriculum or did some kind of learnings on my own. If I had to go back, I would probably look into those three things to kind of maybe build myself as a stronger candidate.
Very good, very interesting. Thank you. So this next one is kind of a loaded question. So you're at this point in your career. Is there something that you know today that you wish you'd have known as a student? Something you want to share with the other students here? Something you wish you'd have known as a student that you know today?
I'll give you two perspectives. One, I wish I was so busy. I was working full time. I had a family by the time I did either of my degrees. I wish I had taken the time to make some good friends. A lot of my friends that joined the clubs and were in the activities made good friends, and they have those friends. And not only are they good friends that they've kept, but they've also been good references on jobs and helped them find jobs and helped each other. So I think that's one thing. And the other thing that I have seen over and over again is people take out too many loans when they go to college. They want to live as well as they did when they used to live at mom's house. And they borrow a lot of money. But when you graduate, you don't want to pay it back. So if I had to give a piece of advice, is be as cheap as you possibly can, live as low as you possibly can, have some fun, make some friends, but realize, get good grades so you can get more scholarships, then you have to get loans. And so those are my two pieces of advice for people looking.
Very good.
Yeah, that's good insight. Something for me is that I know a lot of times, or when I was a student, it's like, okay, I have my dream job, right? And that's what I'm striving towards. But that getting to your dream job may require a few additional steps before you get there. And that's totally okay, because through that process, you're going to learn about career paths. You might learn about maybe a location where you may or may not want to live. You might learn about a job that you may or may not want to do. And I think that's such a unique time as a student to take advantage of those experiences and to experiment, right? Sometimes, as was mentioned, maybe once you've graduated, you're going to start getting your bills for paying back your student loans. And therefore, you may not have that flexibility or that option that you may have as a student. And so there are a lot of opportunities, I think, within the Gonzaga community in Spokane, or whether your home community may be, to take on internships during the school year, during the summer, just so you can build upon that experience to learn more about what it is that you want to do. Yes, experience looks great on a resume, but I think it's more for you. I took on a role in Spokane at a company during the school year, and I was like, I do not want to go into this. And that was one of the most valuable experiences I could have gotten versus setting on a path that's a false kind of presumption that I had that that's what I wanted to do. So that's kind of something I wish someone told me about, that it's okay. Also, rejection is completely okay. It's part of the process. I know, trust me, I get it. When you get that email, you've applied to a job and you've worked so hard on your cover letter and your resume, and then you get that rejection email and it can be very frustrating. I can totally empathize, but I think that rejection is part of the process for each of us to reflect back on our experiences, understand where we need to dive more into, what are things that we're passionate about. And I wish more folks had made that okay, or talked more about it and had told me that, because I think you learn and you grow so much from that. And I have, looking back now, at that time, I didn't realize it. So those would be kind of two things that I would tell myself if I was, a freshman or a sophomore at GU again.
Okay, all good stuff, both of you. So the next question has to do with, what is your typical day like? I know things have changed with COVID. Are you working at home? Do you go to the office? What can a student expect when they go into the job market today?
Well, I'm working at home most of the time. Part of my job really is tough to do from home. If you're like tomorrow, I'll go in, I'm going to teach an Excel class to some people. And it's really hard to teach Excel online, one-on-one to somebody. And to the level, like Yusra said, it's really data analysis. It's not like, how do you click here or go there? But we do a ton of data analysis and looking for, tack time and how many people you need and the variations and all of that. And that takes a different way of looking at it. So tomorrow I'll go in and teach that class for a couple hours to one of my people that I'm training. But my day, every day, is different. One day I might be doing data analysis. I lead leader standard work for a group of leaders. We look at everything that happened today and everything that happened yesterday and look at it over time. And so we're constantly looking for how do we improve a process. And a lot of it you can do at home, but a lot of it really takes being in the office. So very different. One of my biggest challenges, I know that was the other part of the question, one of my biggest challenges is people are so busy doing their job that they don't stop to fix what's going wrong. And so my biggest challenge is trying to convince people to stop and sharpen the saw, figure out, okay, give me a few hours to help you look at this, and then we can figure out what to do. And when they will do that, you get great results. You continuously make things better, and it makes it easier for the person. And usually if you can convince them a time or two, pretty soon they're like, okay. In fact, I heard one today, we have to stop and sharpen the saw. And they start repeating some of my things where even a year ago, some of them, one of my managers had never used Excel, never opened it, didn't even know it was on her computer. And she just finished a study and called me this morning sharing the results and all the data analysis that they did. And she's like, you have to have proof. And so like Yusra was saying, you have to know, you have to tell a story. And so she was showing me the story and she was just so excited about it today. So every day can be different for me. Every day can be, some days are just make me giggly happy, and other days I just want to pull my hair out. But, you know, as my mom used to say, that's why they pay you.
Very good. Thank you, Lois. And how about you, Yusra?
Yeah, I'll provide two perspectives. So up until 3 weeks ago in my previous role, you know, I had more of a standard operating rhythm. I knew what I was doing. I was a team lead. I, excuse me, had my login by 7:30, get going on my meetings, list out my tasks for the day. My role was very collaborative. So, you know, reaching out, working with other people to solve the product at hand, the problem at hand, figuring out how we could do that. My last role actually was supporting the 737 MAX business operations team. So looking at how can we help our customers get their aircrafts, you know, delivered back quickly and safely as possible. So a lot of operations based, figuring out the lead time, what does the schedule look like? And there were so many different scenario plannings that I was working on. So that's where I was. So many of you on the call may be students. And so as you're entering into the workforce, you may think about, okay, well, onboarding, right? And what does that look like? And so I now, over last week, have been going through a virtual onboarding, just like many of you may be as well. So I can very much empathize with each and every one of you as you're kind of thinking about this. And it's very different, right? It's like, it's all virtual. We're logging in. There's no like people interaction. But I think to that point, a lot of employers understand that. And so they are working on making sure the onboarding process is designed in a new way to meet the virtual needs. Folks are logging in or being more intentional and being on camera, right? So that helps add the human element to that. So those have been some of the challenges. It's right now, my typical day at work is I'm in a learning mode. I'm a sponge trying to absorb as much as I can. And a lot of that comes, that responsibility comes on me, right? To make sure I'm being more vocal and asking questions, being more persistent, like following up. And those are some kind of, I guess, guidance I would provide to all of you on the call today too, right? As you're looking at either internships or full-time opportunities, you are responsible for your career, and you definitely, you have the ability to kind of shift it and morph it into what you'd like for it to be. So be persistent, ask questions as you're leaning in and trying to learn, because sometimes in a virtual environment, it can be difficult for others to kind of gauge that. And so right now, my typical day at work is just, learning a lot, asking a lot of questions, setting up time with people, being really intentional about what I'm trying to understand my role and how I can add and drive value for my organization. I don't know if that helps answer the question or not, but that's kind of where I'm at.
It does. Thank you very much. So the next question is to help our students prepare for the marketplace. And one of the things they want to know is, what do they need to have on their resume or their degree program experience that's going to make them marketable for a firm like yourselves, where you work at? So what is your firm looking for in terms of attributes of a good student?
We always look for people who volunteer. We look for people who are willing to reach out and help other people. Part of that is, so sorry. Part of that is when you go to work, you're not so self-consumed. When you've helped other people and you're looking at things, you're a bigger person. I also think we look for, right now we're looking a lot in accounting, project management. We look at IT. So those are kind of the areas that, other than all the normal areas that we've grown so much. But so the more you have awareness, you may not have to be an accountant, but the more you understand how accounting fits into operations, the more you understand how you can improve a process by using information and, computer systems, but you have to fix the process first. You don't want to just make it go faster and have it still be a bad process. So the more rounded you can be on things, the better off. But we really strive to find people who volunteer. They're more likely to train people in the actual position as long as the person is a good fit. And we're kind of a giant family where I work.
Very good. Sure.
Yeah, I would echo that, just to add a little bit more specifically on, again, looking at a virtual environment, right? A lot of you may be sending out your resumes and applying online. And I think what's something that could help set you or anyone apart is making sure your resume tells a story, right, of who you are as well. I get most excited when when someone's passion is leaping off of a page, and I think that's super important, right? So whether that's highlighting that with the various projects that you're working on, your class projects are something you absolutely can highlight on your resume. But when you're doing that, it's saying, I worked in with a group to evaluate international business markets. That doesn't tell me much about what you did. Whereas if you say, I worked with a group of 5 team members evaluating 4 different international business markets, providing X, Y, and Z, that helps tell the story of what you did, and it's data driven, and that allows the individual that's looking at your resume to gain a better understanding of maybe an approach that you took to do it, that you're, the first sentence that I said, it didn't really showcase that you collaborated with folks. When you were saying you worked in a team of 5 people, it helps us, helps the reviewer look at, okay, they have experience, because collaboration is super important in the workforce, right? You absolutely cannot do it alone. And so just highlighting those type of experiences will really help. So passion, make sure you talk about data and metrics, and I think critical thinking abilities as well, right? I think a lot of Gonzaga grads are really well known for this, as well as other schools too, but maybe I'm biased. But the critical thinking ability, and to be able to connect the dots. Okay, well, you're seeing this happen in this side, but now you're hearing this, and how do you connect those dots? So being able to share that through whether that's your resume or your cover letter or in an interview, I think that really helps. And then lastly, just a willingness to learn. As Lois mentioned, I don't think the intent is that you're a subject matter expert coming into your role. If you are, you should not be applying for that role. The idea is that you're going to come in and you're going to learn and you're going to grow, and showing your enthusiasm for learning, I think goes a long way as companies are looking for candidates to join their organizations.
Okay, very good. Thank you both. So a lot of our students they're a little nervous about the marketplace, entering in with the COVID taking place and the changes in work structure. If you were a junior in college, or what would you do differently to prepare yourself for today's job market, given everything that's going on?
What would I do? Well, one thing I would do is I wouldn't have to limit myself to one location, because so much of it is online, and many companies aren't expecting it to go completely back. So I would look at, where would I like the operation to be? Where would I, if I saw something in Florida, I might apply now, where before I might not have, because people are working all over the world for companies that are in totally different places. So to me, there are some real advantages. There are some real opportunities from, you know, not having to move and still being able to take that job. So I think it'd be great to have that open. So it's kind of the, you know, good side of that coin. And, you know, if you wanted to move there later, perfect. But
Good perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the environment that we're in today has opened up a lot of has shifted the barriers, right? Location being one of them. So it's definitely really great insight. I think that something that the candidates, whether there's a student or anyone else that's later in their career field too, that they have to kind of look at or be more intentional about is the networking piece, right? It's previously we were maybe in social settings that allowed us to network, whether that was Gonzaga's Career Center that helped prepare, create those environments. So I would say definitely look at how you can be intentional with virtual networking, and that could be relying on your Gonzaga network or others. I think it was mentioned earlier when we started the conversation, right? Like your classmates aren't just your classmates, they are part of your network that are going to help you or could potentially help you and support you in your career path as well. And that goes for alumni or others. So I would say definitely take advantage of that. If you're interested in a career in operations and you're not sure what that day in a life of a operations personnel looks like, it'd be great to shadow someone and to get that experience through that. LinkedIn is also great. They have various different features that they've rolled out, right? Like change your status that you're open to work, because a lot of recruiters see that and they may reach out to you for entry level opportunities that you may not be aware of, right? Because there's so much out there. And then lastly, back to that networking piece, right? Be really mindful when you're reaching out to folks, but don't let that keep you from reaching out, right? Like reach out to someone whose profile looks interesting in a position that you're interested in, or a company that you may be interested in, or opportunities for internships too, right? Those are great ways to build your experience and kind of get your foot in the door and potentially then network within the organization. So those are probably are some things that I would, in a virtual environment, that I would say students and others that are looking to make that career shift could potentially leverage to learn more about opportunities.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the next question has to do with certifications. There's a lot of different certifications. One of course is Six Sigma, and I'm being a black belt. What's the importance of certifications today, and what advice would you give to our students as far as should they try to get some certifications, whether it's in school, or is this something that's best to be done on the job?
I really think project management's one of those. They have some shorter classes, so you're at least aware, but I think project management's a good certification. Obviously, I think Lean Six Sigma is certification. You don't have to go all the way to the black belt. You can start with green, or, and learn to the level at the point that you need. But any and every opportunity for certifications, if your business offers you a class when you go to work, go take it, whether you think it matters today or not. I just think that continuing your education, I know everybody I've ever seen, when they get done with their school, they're like, whew, done with that. But you're never done. The world has changed and changed and changed, and it's continuing to move on. And you can't sit down for a minute. You have to keep trying to find what you can learn next. Whether you're looking at Agile, or whether you're looking at a new computer system. I mean, I am constantly finding new things that I want to go learn, and go to every conference you can get to go to. I actually attended a virtual conference that was supposed to be in Florida, which sounded like much more fun. But the virtual conference actually was great, because they not only did you get to go to these classes, you got to have the recordings for the entire conference. So the ones you couldn't go to, because they're all running concurrently, now I got them all. So I almost felt like a disappointment because I missed the fun, the sun, and Mickey Mouse, but I did get a lot more education and I really enjoyed it.
Very good. Yusra, how about you?
I'm a big fan of continuous learning. I know it's the last thing students want to hear. Just when I was a senior, I'm like, oh my God, grad school, getting more certifications. I just finally put in my 4 years and I take a break. So I definitely can understand, but I do think it's important to kind of keep that in the back of your mind as you're thinking about career opportunities, whether that's something you want to do in parallel with your your undergrad or your graduate education, if you have the bandwidth to support, or something you want to add on later. I've definitely, as mentioned earlier, I went and got my graduate degree, and then I've also gotten certain certifications. I don't think there's one certification that's better than another. It really just depends on your career path and your area of interest, right? I think it really comes down to, if you're not passionate about something, putting yourself through that is not going to be much fun. But if that's something that excites you and that's interests you, for example, like project management, then it's definitely worth diving more into detail and going and getting a cert in that. So I would highly recommend it. There are a lot of great options out there from various other schools that offer it, other organizations that offer it. So definitely take a look at that. And if that's, I would also encourage you, once, whether if you're taking some time off with an employer and that's what you're trying to do on your own time, or if you're employed and you're doing it, a lot of employers do offer tuition reimbursement. So definitely take a look into that as an opportunity if you decide to go down that path.
I'll kind of parrot what she said. If you're going to take a little time off after school before you go to work, you will get asked in the interview, what have you done since? And you need to have some, if you didn't, I've been reading a couple more books on XYZ, or I took a class on my own time on this, or I volunteered. But you need an answer to that question, because the people you're competing with are going to have that answer.
Very good observation. So the next question has to do with sustainability and social responsibility. How important is that in your organization, and how does that affect your career path?
You want to go first?
Sure. It's hard in a virtual environment, you never know. I think it just really depends. A lot of organizations are very much focused on this, and they're sharing their sustainability goals and whatnot. I know that's really important to me. Something I look into when I am having conversations with my teams, my organizations about the work that we're doing, where our goals align. When you, as a candidate, it's not only that you're being interviewed for the role, it's an opportunity for you to interview the employer as well, to see if it's a good fit on your end as well. And so I would highly encourage you all to ask those questions if it comes from, whether that's sustainability, whether it's like diversity and inclusion, whatever that may be that interests you. Definitely lean in and ask that, because then you'll get a better understanding of where that organization lines up to be. And let's say you get there and you realize, oh, this isn't working out, but this is something I'm interested in. Guess what? There's an opportunity for you to push for that and drive that change and be that leader. And so I would also encourage you all to take a look into that. And there might be opportunities that may not be embedded in the organization's culture or their goals currently, but that doesn't mean it can't change. And I think each and every one of you had the opportunity to contribute and more. And I'm confident that organizations are more than happy to engage in those conversations. So I think that's kind of just some insight I'd share.
Thank you. Lois?
Yeah, I agree with her. I work for an organization that is a really open organization. We look for what you bring to the table and not anything else. And so it's been a really interesting transition from some of the other places I've been. But I totally agree with her that right now in the political climate, everybody is concerned about how they look, how it appears. And frankly, I don't think most people know how to bring it up in an interview to find out anything. But so, you know, if you have a question, ask a question. She is exactly right. You are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. So learn everything you can about them before you go into the company. But if you have questions about things, ask the questions. And if you do get in there, you can be the change. Sometimes people have been in a place for long enough that they don't even know how to make the change. And a new person can bring in so much difference just because they are the difference. They're changing how things are looked at. They're changing how it really is, who's on top even. And you can make a huge difference into the organization by bringing in your own values.
Okay, very good. Thank you both. So a related question has to do with community service. How important is it to you in your career and from your employer's perspective, community service? I know we really emphasize it here at Gonzaga. I used to work for Procter & Gamble and those really big. So I'm just curious, what's the current status with your position?
We get paid to volunteer. They give us time off of work. I get probably an email 2 or 3 times a week about some opportunity, but if I get an opportunity to go volunteer someplace, they don't tell me where I have to volunteer. They don't tell me where to provide community service. So if I felt like going and walking the dogs at the dog pound, that would count to them. And so we're very big on community service. We do all kinds of classes for even children to learn how to manage a budget. We have classes for 8-year-olds to manage a budget. We have all kinds of things that we offer. So it's a huge part of the fiber of my organization.
Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think more and more organizations are putting emphasis towards that. And I think it's a lot because of the shift of folks coming into the workforce, already a part of the workforce, demanding for that, right? Like community services or supporting the community is a very important thing that's close to me. And I know to a lot of my teams that I've supported in the past and currently too. My previous employer was definitely, super supportive of that. There were opportunities to log your hours, opportunities for matching and whatnot. So that was fantastic at Boeing. And I think a lot of other organizations replicate a similar model. We even, our team had our team bonding activities. We're going out and doing community service projects. And so it was very much supporting. Anytime I traveled with Boeing for a program, community service was embedded as part of the agenda. We did that. My current role, and I was seeking something similar as I made the jump over to Amazon, and my new role is product manager for GSF community. And so it's really exciting that I get to be in more of a kind of take my passion for tech and community engagement and serve in that capacity. And so some of you may have seen during the Super Bowl, there was an ad that was released by Amazon about committing to deliver 6 million meals to underserved communities. And so that's, I'm supporting, I'll be joining it and, starting to support that effort. So that's been something super important for Amazon as well. And I really appreciate that. And so again, if that's something of interest to any of you as you're working through your interviews, there's definitely an opportunity for you to ask that and in different ways and share your passion and interest for it. So that way you can, if that's something that's not there, it might become an opportunity to drive that change for community engagement.
Very good. Thank you both. So the next question has to do with leadership and team building, both related. So what kind of attributes or what kind of skills do you think it's important for students to get to be able to excel in leadership and team building in your companies?
I never know if I'm going to talk over the top of her, so.
Go ahead.
Leaders have to learn real quick how to communicate. Communication skills are really important in any leadership position, whether it's operations or anything else. If you're not capable of talking to everybody, whether that's today you meet with the CFO or the president and tomorrow you're meeting with another group of employees. So you really have to be very diligent about building your communication skills. That's one of them that I really see weaknesses in. People don't know how to talk to people at different levels. I've always found that interesting. Having had a variety of positions, I'm always surprised that just a title can be so scary. But, you know, so I think communication is probably one of the biggest ones. And I'll let Yusra go because I know she's got some great answers.
Yeah, I definitely think communication, I was just making a quick list. I was like, oh, what are things? And communication is definitely at the top, right? The way you communicate with your, think about it, right? Like the way you communicate with your roommate is probably not the way you communicate with someone on your group project. And that is definitely not the way you probably communicate with your professor, right? So that all applies when you're out in the workforce as well. The way you're going to communicate with your friends at work that is going to be different than your team members and then your leadership. So you have to think about the different forms and levels of communication. And a lot of times I think that comes with putting yourself in their shoes, which is really hard to do, right? Think about an executive. If you have to send an email, provide them a quick update. I mean, I learned this through experience, but maybe bullet points is the best way to go rather than a long, you know, paragraph brief when they can't read through it. But when you're talking maybe with your manager and you're trying to escalate an issue, you probably want to go with that route and explain the details of the steps you've taken. This is where you're having the issue. So I think just polishing up on your communication skills is something that would help everyone, I think, as they're looking to progress into opportunities. I also think servant leadership is a really important component, especially for me as a form of, you know, leadership attribute. If you're aspiring to be a manager or take on a, you know, formal leadership role, think about how you can serve your team and your coworkers and whoever else that's involved in the conversation. With that comes a lot of empathy, right? You may have a scenario when someone doesn't show up to a meeting and it's so easy to say, oh my gosh, that person did not respect my time, they're not punctual. But when we have empathy towards each other and we think about it from a different lens, the conversation shifts to, well, maybe they had something going on in their personal life or something came up. And during COVID, we've all experienced that, right? How many of you have slept in like 5-10 minutes into a start of a class because you just weren't able to get logged in, or you had technical issues, right? Those things are legitimate and they happen. And I think maybe through COVID, we've been able to develop much more empathy for one another. And a lot of that carries over. And I think that the leaders that I look up to, the leader that I aspire to be is to have that empathy and servant leadership. And then lastly, I think collaboration. That's really critical because I strongly believe you can't do anything on your own. Like, yes, you may have a great idea, but it really takes a team to drive that and put that into action. And so it's really important to be able to be a collaborative individual, to be able to, someone that you can create an inclusive environment for everyone that's participating in the discussion or conversation or the task at hand. So I think those are 4 attributes that I think are really important, or that I look for, or that I'm striving to become better at as I look to become a stronger leader.
I want to agree with her. You know, so often leaders pretend that they're in it by themselves, like they're making it all happen, and nobody can make anything happen alone. You're in it together, and the more credit you give the other person, the more willing they are in the future. And, you know, if you don't do that, people will do exactly what you say and they won't do a bit more. And if it fails, you took the credit, so you get the blame. So the more you can incorporate good teamwork skills and, you know, giving recognition to other people, the better off you are. And having good teamwork skills on your own, whether you're in the leading position or you're being a team member, is really important. And I think the last one that I thought of while she was talking is honesty. So often I have seen leaders that say one thing to you, but they'll say something else to someone else, and you lose all trust. And as soon as you lose trust, it's so hard to get it back. So one thing, no matter if it's good news or bad news, you know, if you have to tell somebody, tell them straight, be honest to yourself. It's a vital skill, and even teamwork and communication won't work if you weren't honest about it all.
Very good. Both great answers. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the next question has to do with belonging, inclusion, and equity. And there's been a lot of consciousness being raised over the last year in these areas. I was wondering, has there been a change in the emphasis at your firm? And how has that affected your career?
Yeah, I can start that. I do think there's been quite a bit of a change across the industry. I think overall, right? If you're following up just on what various organizations are doing, I've seen an emphasis just in my time within what that was, my previous employer, and making sure there's intentional conversations ongoing. There's opportunities for the employees to come together to create a safe space for folks to be vocal and to express their concerns. A lot of times, I think that folks may be removed from certain aspects of the organization, so they may not be even aware of it. And so, if something that I encourage others, and I try to do myself, is how do I voice that the concerns that I have, so we can create a healthier and a stronger working environment for everyone. Even in just going through the recruiting process lately, as I took on a new role, right? I've seen a lot. I've seen that a shift in that too, as folks are being more intentional and becoming more aware of the diversity and just the various accommodations folks may need. And so I've really appreciated that. I do think there's always room for improvement, and that improvement comes with each and every one of us. And that's about, and it's a really hard thing to do, right? To be able to say, raise your hand and showcase that, hey, we need to maybe shift our perspective from this to that. But I am a firm believer that it's uncomfortable, but the opportunity that creates to ensure that others feel comfortable is just everlasting. So it's something that I know I'm working on. I've been really thankful for all the organizations and teams that I've participated on being really open to that, and have been showcasing a larger emphasis on this as we move forward and creating inclusive and diverse environments for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Lois?
I would parrot everything she had to say. I think that organizations are much more aware, just more thoughtful about what their current behaviors are and how does that appear, and being more intentional about being more open and more honest, and even allowing people to take that route and say, hey, I'm not so sure this is the right thing, and being able to help move things along. In the past, so often in organizations, we kind of left that like it was an HR thing. That's an HR function. And it's no longer just one department's responsibility. It's become the entire organization's responsibility to be aware and thoughtful in how we do things and say things and how we're perceived in the community and everything. So it has changed some.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have one more question for the panelists before we turn it over to questions from our participants, from the students who are here in this session. So my last question is, what's one piece of advice you'd give to students? There's been a number of pieces of advice given, but if you were to summarize it up and had something to say, this would be the best advice I'd give you as a student, what would it be?
I think I gave mine. Make friends, get scholarships, get good grades. And when you get into the interview, you have to remember that you are competing against a host of other people. And so the more aware you are, the more good questions you could ask, the better you can portray yourself. So when they ask a question, and I'll give you a little story about myself. I went to one interview and I did not feel good about my answers. And so when I wrote my thank you letter, which by the way, a lot of people forget to write, when I wrote my thank you letter, I went through and gave additional answers to some of the questions. And I openly said, I'm not sure I answered that question very well. Here's really what I've thought about. And I got the job. And truthfully, it was one of the best paying jobs I've ever had in my life. And they told me it was because I wrote that letter. So even if you fail the first time, try trying again. And if you don't get the job, remember you're up against people who you must have been great to get selected in the first place. So you're in the top, 2%. Keep trying. The right thing will show up for you.
Thanks, Lois. Very, very good advice. Yusra?
Yeah, that's great insight. Totally agree. I think a lot of people do forget to follow up on those thank you notes. It's always, it definitely helps set you apart. And so with that, I think, I would echo everything Lois has shared, what I've shared too. But what I'd leave you all with is that 4 things. I think passion is really important. And it's because a job that's high paying versus something you truly enjoy, what's going to get you up every morning, I have a feeling is going to be your passion, something that excites you, right? So make sure you follow that. And that takes time to figure out what your passion is. I don't think you need to know right away. I think a lot of times your passion will change, and that's completely okay too. And that comes with giving yourself the room to experiment, try different things, and figure out what is best for you at that given time. I would say be a continuous learner, whether that's in the classroom or outside. Again, I know it's the last thing you want to hear after you do all your homework and your readings and all of that, but if something piqued your interest, think about it, right? Okay, how can I learn more about it? Something like I mentioned, right? Data analytics. I wish I took more time to dive into that, learn different tools like Tableau and others on my own. When I was a student. So that continuous learning model is super important and something that's going to stick with you beyond your time as an undergrad or a grad student. Rely on your network, right? Your Gonzaga network is phenomenal. The Gonzaga network helped me so much. The faculty, the staff, the alumni, your fellow peers. So definitely take advantage of that. And the resources that you have to learn more from a career perspective, whether that's in operations or elsewhere. And then lastly, I think it's super important to provide feedback as often as you can, right? If something isn't working for you, a lot of times, I know I'm guilty of this. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to move on and go try something else. But we can't make our communities, our organizations, any process better unless we share like our experience through it and the feedback. So something else I would say, try to speak up, again, obviously in a polite manner, and then so we can build about bringing that change that we want to see our communities to do better. So those are just 4 pieces of insights that I would share as you all continue on with your studies and enter into the workforce in the near future.
Very good, thank you. And I want to thank our panelists for their great answers to all our questions. I know it kind of seemed like you're being, there was a lot of questions. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to turn things over to students or any person who's participating in this event today. I'd like to ask our panelists a question. I would like you to do it by voice, if you could. So, and turn your camera on. It'd be nice to be able to see who we're talking to and go ahead and, so who would like to go first? I know we covered a lot of topics, so we may have hit your issue, but does anybody have any issues, anything they want to have addressed or talk about? Okay, well, what do you think, Ashish?
Wonderful questions, wonderful answers, Yusra and Lois, both. Does anyone have any questions for the panel members? Please unmute yourself and please feel free to speak.
Yeah, I have a question. My camera is not hooked up to my computer currently, so I can't turn that on. But how do you think that getting internships would affect future college or future job options?
I think if you can get an internship, take it, even if it isn't the direction exactly where you want to go, because you're going to learn a lot about being in a work. You're going to learn a lot about different opportunities. And if it's in something that you want, most of the time the internships either have an option of an employment after you get done if you do a great job of it, but it also is a huge contact. You're going to make good contacts with a business, somebody you know, they're going to know somebody. Everybody knows somebody. And the more you know somebody, the better off you have. They make great references. So if you get an internship, go for it, no matter what it is.
Awesome. Thank you.
Other questions?
Are you still open for questions?
Yes.
Do you guys ever regret going into operations management? Or are there ever any times when you really struggle and wish you had chosen something else?
I can tell you that there's times where I've thought being a lean leader, CI manager is like, what was I thinking? Why didn't I get a normal job? But there are a lot of great parts to what I do. And operations sounds like one job, but there is absolutely a touch of operations in every single thing you do. And so, you know, you can have this on your degree, but it doesn't mean you're only going to do that. Every single job has some aspect of operations in it. So the more operations knowledge you have, the broader you're going to think. It's just going to be helpful for you. And I've changed jobs a lot of times. I mean, I've changed career types multiple times just because I wanted to, and I saw a great opportunity. And so just because you graduate with one degree plan doesn't mean that's your life career. You have so many opportunities, and the education that you're getting is going to help give you the foundation. And you're just going to keep learning and growing. You know, and we've all heard the study that the jobs that are out there today, some of them will not even be available anymore. And there will be a whole new world of things out there. And, you know, so study hard now and learn all the different parts and just know that the new world is out there. You don't have to be the same thing every day.
Very good. Other questions?
Any more questions from the audience?
Well, it is 1 o'clock. I suppose people are used to it finishing at 1. But so if there's no other questions, I guess we'll go ahead and call the session to an end. Again, we want to thank our panelists, Yusra and Lois, for their outstanding participation today and their great answers. I learned a lot. I hope the other students did too, other people in the session. Ashish?
I learned a lot from both the panelists. It's always an eye-opener. It's always good to have Lois and Yusra. Thank you both. Thank you, Scott, for moderating and hosting the event. Thank you, Molly, for welcoming everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I learned a lot too. I loved your perspective on a lot of things, and it always helps me think differently. So, you know, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to all of you for having us, and to the students for joining too. I really appreciate it. And if there's any way I could be of help, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. Would love to connect, and wish you all the best as you move forward into spring semester.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.